And you guys have had a lot of interesting activities since. Well, how long have you lived here?
Since 2003.
Okay. And so since you've moved here, you've had a lot of stuff going
Since
on.
almost day one, we've had bizarrities. You know, and I was thinking, man, how could we possibly have a Bigfoot or something here this close to town, because we're really just a couple miles as the crow flies from town. But yet we are surrounded by woods on all sides. We're technically in the county.
Right.
But it's more than I could hope for. But yet, over and over, the evidence seems to support that there's something down here. One of the earliest things when we moved in is I'd be out in my backyard working, and big rocks would come flying out of the woods. You know, land, you know, somewhere close to where we was at. At night, something would come up and smack the back of the house, it sounded like. Elijah and Gabrielle, or Elijah mostly, claimed to have seen something. I'll let him tell you about it in a minute. We've had weird roarings and whoops and hollers,
and even up very recent.
Yes, tree knocks, loud raspy breathing.
Now you had
animals killed.
Right, because you said you had a bunch of, was it chickens?
There's chickens and cats.
Stacked in the little shed you have?
Yeah, I had a metal building about from the edge here to this width, and had like a panel along this door where just you had this open over here, and inside I had, like on the radio flyer, wagons sitting against this wall, set up against it long ways. And we kept missing animals, and things would come out at night, or we'd get our other animals stirred up, and we'd go out with a shotgun and try to figure out what it was. And there'd always be some sort of weird orange eye shine down here in these bottoms. And as we got close to that goat house, and we call it goat house because we had a goat tied up where she could go in and out and get out of the weather.
Right.
We also had some things stored in the building, like the radio flyer. And as we were standing by her house, we smelled something stinking, just really horrible. And we started looking around to see if we could find anything. And for some reason, we pulled the radio flyer, the wagon, out away from the wall, moved it back, and there, stacked up several high, was our missing cats and chickens and such. The cat was just hollowed out. Its whole stomach was missing, just hollowed out inside.
Right.
But I don't know of anything that would literally have to go in the goat house with the goat and not harm the goat, but go in the goat house, move the wagon, and then stack up dead animals in there.
Right.
And then put the wagon back.
That's very odd.
I called the state of Tennessee Wildlife, and they said there's no animal that they know of that does such things. They were looking for something of a more human component.
Right.
We also had a 40-pound turkey named, what was that turkey's name? Irma, yeah. I went out to check on her one morning. She was in the pen laying there dead, and she too was hollowed out. Her rectum was just missing. It was just like she'd been cored out. And there was no blood in her, no anything. When I picked her up, like 3 drops of blood hit the ground.
Wow.
But you could just see it looked like somebody took a knife and just cored her out like that.
Cored out the inside. Now, and even recently, you had like up near the front of your property, like a whole bunch of different activity where it was like there were. You called me that night, and there was a whole bunch of commotion that happened.
Yeah, it was somewhere around Easter. We had friends over, or family over, and when they left, we'd walk them up the rest of the way up the hill to their car to see them off. And it almost sounded like jabbering voices and squeals and hollers and monkey chatter off to the side over here. Then it was some directly back here, and then off to that area. I mean, it just almost sounded like the forest was alive with people or things just jabbering.
Was it cool that night?
It was cool.
Was it a clear night, or?
It seems like it was relatively clear. I don't really remember the weather.
Okay.
Seems like there might have been a little bit of wind up. Not a whole lot, but just a breeze. But it was very dark.
And you've had a lot of weird occurrences out here. Now, you saw something up near the shed in the front.
Yes.
What did you see?
I was coming back from a jog. I suppose it was around 5 o'clock. It was around the spring, April, May.
Mm-hmm.
And I see this thing, just a side profile, really, out from behind the shed door.
Mm-hmm.
And before I can get close, it's gone. It looks like it's gray and possibly hairless and standing on 2 legs, maybe about the size of a toddler.
Mm-hmm.
And before I can get over and see a better look at what it is, it just runs off.
Mm-hmm.
And it's extremely heavy.
On 2 legs.
Yeah, on 2 legs. It's extremely heavy, like heavier than a cat would be, and it's extremely fast, just like the wind. And it makes a noise when it gets off in the woods. It sounds like a combination between a cat, a dog, and a toddler.
Mm-hmm.
It sounded so human I had to consider the possibility that maybe someone's kid did get out there, but it was much too heavy and fast to be that.
Mm-hmm. And you also had something, you said that sounded like it was running up to the door.
Yeah, it was just me and Elijah and our grandma home one night. Elijah was off in his room, me and my grandma in the living room.
Mm-hmm.
I get ready to take Balder out. He gets excited like someone's there. I hear steps coming down, sounded just like him in his big heavy work boots coming down the steps.
Mm-hmm.
I assume they're home. I open the door, nothing. The steps have stopped. No one's out there.
Right. Wow. I mean, and you, see, when you were a kid, now was it you or Elijah that saw the weird creature? Was it
That would
Elijah?
be him.
Yeah.
What are the 2 different things that you saw when you were a kid?
Well, I suppose the first one would be, we used to have a lot of dogs around this area,
Mm-hmm.
and, you know, every day me and my sister would go out and feed them and water them and that sort of thing. And one day we were in the backyard feeding a dog named, I think it may have been Buster or Amy. And while she was feeding her, I looked back up behind me over in the wood line.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this was at the time of our neighbors bulldozed a bunch of trees, pushed it down onto our property. I looked up in the area and I could see in the beam of sunlight a human-looking shape, but I couldn't tell anything. It was just a black shape walking forward through the woods, and then it just walked behind something. That's all I seen.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of panicked and ran inside and got my dad, and, you know, he traversed the area and he couldn't find footprints or anything of that nature.
Were you by yourself?
No, I was with my sister.
And did you see it?
I didn't see it. I was looking in a different direction.
Oh, okay.
But it freaked me out, and this time I was already scared of Bigfoot.
Now, what else did you say? There was one other creature?
There's one other incident, and it was pretty weird. Me and my sister were playing outside, and she was climbing some tree, and she'd gotten inside of, you know, on top of a branch, climbed up it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of ditches on our property, and where I was standing, I was watching her climb the tree, and further down across one of our ditches, I seen, you know, what looked like a Bigfoot to me, but it looked like it had a tail that was just writhing and shaking, jiggling back and forth. And as weird as it sounds, it seems like it almost looked like the Patterson footage cut out and pasted on the land, if you understand what I mean. And, you know, I ran back inside and got them. Sorry, I abandoned you on the tree.
But Gabby swears that she saw a hunter with a gun.
Yeah, so it's weird.
You say you saw a hunter with a gun. I mean, could you tell, like, any detail? Or?
Yeah, I mean, he had like reddish brownish hair with a beard. Not like a big burly beard, but, you know, just some facial hair on him.
Mm-hmm.
And it gets even weirder when she said, we have witches that live somewhere on our neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
And she said it looked exactly like that fella because we seen him later on. And it looked exactly like him.
Where was this at?
It was over in the woods, like
It was
on
about-
that side.
It was about maybe over 100 feet behind you.
Okay.
Well, you want me to tell you the kicker, Nathan?
Hmm.
She saw a hunter. He saw a squatch with a tail or something. It was muddy. I went up and looked for footprints. Not a print of anything, human, animal, vegetable, mineral, or anything
Really?
in the mud up there.
That's unusual.
Yeah, I thought it was very unusual. You know, we're forever having something weird go down here. Screams, hollers, monkey chatter, it sounds like. Sometimes you'll hear what sounds like a baby bear roaring down here, or like a big cat.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say big cat, I mean like a...
Mountain lion.
Yeah, at least.
And you don't have mountain lions or black bear in this area, correct? Reported.
Incorrect.
Incorrect?
I've had several people I've interviewed and talked to that see cougars out here a lot.
But it's not like a known, like it's not a categorized animal as far as.
I think they've started to mention it more and
Publicly,
more.
they say it doesn't exist, but I worked with a fellow who was a park ranger out at Port Royal, and he told me that yes, there were cougars around here, but they were just instructed not to tell anybody because they didn't want it to be Freak out, yes.
Well, what about bear?
Bear, absolutely. Out at the research place where we go a lot of times, I found bear tracks and claw marks in the ground from a bear. I found boar tusks.
So it's kind of a jungle out here.
Yeah, one gentleman swore to me that he had seen at least 6 different big cats on his property, and he's been trying to actually catch one so that he can prove it. Out near the school that you call the weird-looking school that's got the pods in the water, a black panther has been seen out there crossing the road several times.
Okay.
So there are big animals down here, but still don't know that accounts for what's down
going on here.
Yeah, I mean, when we first moved down here, and I was checking out my property boundaries and stuff, found a big rock down here that's like in the ground, too big to get out. But there was like claw marks clawed into the rock through this moss that was on it, and it's pretty fresh. I don't know if something been sharpening its claws or why it clawed through it, but you could clearly see the patterns of the claws in the rock. Found a big cherry tree down here that both sides of the bark was peeled off where it looked like something been climbing up the side of it.
Right.
Something for a long time would come up and slap the back of the house. Your tree knocks.
Or whoops.
Yeah, whoops. And you know yourself, we got charged.
Right.
Right up here. Was it last fall?
Yeah, it was fall, and we were sitting there, and then it started running at us when I did either a call or something like that.
And it had done that to me just a few nights before, and then you come up, and it done it again.
And like tonight, when I was up there towards my vehicle, I was hearing something whooping down the road, and there were dogs barking, but whatever it was going whoop, whoop. And it wasn't making like a dog sound. It didn't sound like a bark. It sounded like something like a monkey.
It's not exactly a whoop, but it is an odd noise because it was doing it last week. Several times, we've got like this 2-mile walking track around the streets around here that brings us around this big loop and home. We'll be out walking in the evening, and a lot of times we pass different areas of woods that are really thick. We'll hear things walking. We'll hear weird noises off in the distance, off in the woods.
And weren't you having that occur? This is a couple years ago, and you were telling me you were walking and you were like hearing something.
Yeah, you hear things hollering off in the distance. My point is, there's a lot of wooded areas here. Even though we're close to town, there's vast tracts of wilderness around here.
Right.
And something could have a mile and a half of woods that's a quarter of a mile thick, and then it crosses the street, and then it's got a 5-mile tract of nothing but woods. So there's plenty of wilderness here that's something to just jump across the street and when it starts thinning out there, it jumps across another street, and it's right back into another big environment.
It's just stepping stones.
Huh?
It's just stepping stones.
But ever since we've lived here, there's been bizarre occurrences here.
Right. Well, you're down off the road where you're located. You're not like up on the top of the hill. You're kind of down.
No,
in
I'm
the
down
woods.
in the woods. You wouldn't even know there's a house here if you hadn't just been told.
Right.
And you know yourself that strange things happen here. Were you here the time that the tree was vibrating?
Yeah.
Or there's a tree over here leaned over, and it just had this vibrating to it. We constantly, when we least expect it, hear flute music. Even the last time you were here and we were down in this spot, this weird flute music just started emanating down here in the forest.
Well, we had that weird wind. It was like it came to the edge. It sounded like rain coming through the woods. And then it just stopped. And then it was around that time we heard the flute music as well.
Nathan,
we even had it recorded.
Nathan, I've recorded the flute music.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, we've got it recorded a couple of different times, and
We'll hear voices in the woods.
Yeah, we'll hear voices in the woods and never find anybody there.
We'll hear singing in the woods. You remember that?
Now that you remind me, yes.
Mm-hmm.
But yet you come down here, shine flashlight, there's nothing here.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know if it's related to the fact that you have just a ways to that direction over there, you have a group of rather wealthy witches
Mm-hmm.
who got their land blocked off and monitored with cameras and everything. And they will have huge pagan fests at like the Festival of Samhain, or Samhain, some people call it, or Beltane.
Mm-hmm.
They'll have like people from the city, organizing the parking and everything down there, and have parking up on the streets and
Mhm.
everything. Just huge amounts of people down there,
Mhm.
and I don't know what they're doing.
Mhm.
So I wonder if some of the bizarrities that we have are those people roaming around in the woods at night
Mhm.
doing who knows what.
Right. Well, it's definitely odd, and I've been down here and had some odd occurrences as well. Especially tree knocks, calls.
You
I've
and
actually seen
Gabrielle
eye
even
shine.
thought that you saw something of a,
Shadowy figure.
we'll just say a shape.
Right, like a shadow figure. I mean, it was a small little. It was something that was moving back and forth, and I could see a figure. And you said you saw something of the same height and type,
Mhm.
right?
I may have been my eyes playing tricks on me. I don't know. I was sitting over there. I saw something black walk past me. I guess it was yay high. I could distinctly see a black outline and an extremely round, bulbous head.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and I saw something similar.
Mhm.
And it was right over here, just walking back and forth. I saw it like 3 different
And
times.
that's when you screamed.
I didn't scream. I
No,
went, what
you
is
yelled.
that? And I turned my light on. I didn't freak out.
Really?
Whatever.
Well, if you remember, Pop, I also seen one more thing that looked like a goat down in our
Yes,
woods.
it was, go ahead and tell. It was messing with the dog.
Well, I used to wake up kind of early, and I'd wake up and I'd look out my window.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like I'd wake up and
Your window with
look
the
for
space in your
Bigfoot out my
backyard.
window, just see if I'd see something. And I woke up one day and I looked out my window and was just kind of watching. And this is when we had dogs in our backyard. I remember something white walked up to the dog. It looked like a white goat
Mm-hmm.
walked up to the dog.
On 2 legs, right?
It came up on 4, but then it stood up on 2. After that, it ran back into the woods, and it was really quick, too.
Run back on 2 or 4.
I would say probably 4. That's not a detail I really put
Now,
to
when it
memory.
stood up on 2 legs, what did it do?
I think it may have just stood there for a second, and seems like the dog may have been barking at it, and then shortly after, it just bolted back into the woods. And
Did it have horns that you remember?
yeah, I think it seems like there's horns on it. And then
How old were you at that time?
13 and 15, would you say?
Probably so.
Distance of time, details kind of slowly become a little more fuzzy.
Yeah, because you're so old.
Oh, I'm very old. Old soul, baby.
Sometimes when you, and you even pointed this out the other day, that the air down here in this location sometimes feels thicker and heavier and more, I guess, oppressive than it does when you get back up here.
Mm-hmm.
You can it's almost palpable when it feels like there's something down here, something watching you.
Mm-hmm.
And a few times Elijah and I, we make different woodcraft,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll go off in the woods, and I've seen things dart around the woods that seem hairy, but we'll be working away there gathering wood, and something huge, like just break a huge limb or something in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not deer, because they're not capable of breaking something as heavy as what got shattered.
Right. I remember that when I was here in fall, that I saw eye shine over here too, and it was pretty high up. So I mean, yeah, I'm thinking that because that's probably one of the few visuals I've had here. Mostly it's audible, sound related. I don't think I've experienced rock throwing out here yet.
No, the rock throwing has pretty well ceased after the initial few weeks when we first lived here.
Right.
So at first I thought it was a bunch of kids probably doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was no kids, and then he sees something and she sees something, or
It just kind of adds up.
yeah, it began to just continue to add up.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't believe in ghosts, spooks, specters, hobgoblins, things of that nature, but there's been some weird things that I really can't explain here.
Right.
And there's clearly something leaving claw marks and tracks.
We found an Osage orange down here one time.
Yeah.
But there's no Osage orange trees growing around.
Yeah. And, it's pretty visual if you got an Osage orange somewhere.
Oh, yeah, they're sizable.
Yeah, and I've not even seen one anywhere on any of the hills that would have dropped off and rolled down here. But yet, a big Osage orange ball down here in this spot.
And we've walked all over these woods from here to the fields that connect with town. You remember a thing with big orange eyes?
Yeah, when we'd come out here and it would have our animals stirred up at night.
You were out there a few times a
How high off the
night.
ground would you say the eyes were?
It was very hard to say because we were at an angle up there.
Okay.
Looking down here, and we don't know if it's standing in the ditch, if it's standing up.
Mm-hmm.
It looked low to the ground, but the fact that we were high up and it could have been standing down in the ditch, it made it really impossible to tell. But from way up the hill, the eyes looked really big.
Right.
And they weren't just like you shining a deer's eyes or something like that. They were so orange they almost looked like fire.
Wow.
And it was during that time, Darren, when the animals were stacked up and we'd see what I call orange eyes, that the air just felt so heavy and oppressive and creepy.
Yeah, it just felt like a palpable sense of malice around here. Always go, you had any activity? And I'm like, I don't know, it's been too hot to be out,
Right.
forever. I mean, I've got up early for work in the morning, and just as soon as I stepped out at like 4 or 5 o'clock on the steps, have a whoop holler at me out of the woods.
Now, have you found any footprints out here?
A few times we found things that definitely had foot shape, but nothing impressed enough that we could
Nothing
Say
definite.
for certain.
yes, that we could get a casting.
Okay.
But yes, there's definitely been large tracks out here, some about that big. And it always picks up in the spring and in the fall. Don't know why those two times. When it's really hot like it is now,
It's not as active.
we don't get nearly as much. There's always the fluke incident, but it's usually in the spring and in the fall.
Now, you said lately Balder, your dog, has been acting kind of weird when you come home.
Yes, Balder is always like clockwork. Our door's on this side of the house, and we got a couch right here. And every night I come in, he's right there on that couch waiting for me, looking at the door, anxious to pounce on me when I get there. But lately, when I come home at night, he's been on the couch over here, facing that direction. And so it leads me to think he's been hearing something out the back side of the house, and it's got him freaked out. Either that or he's heard something out front and he's trying to get further away from it. So we don't really know.
Okay. And there was one time with you that you said you thought you heard somebody enter the house. You were like sleeping or something.
Yeah.
Not into the house, but I was laying in bed. I thought I heard someone fiddling with the door. It sounded like my mom trying to come in. I was half asleep at the time, so just kind of laid in bed a while longer. A little while later, my mom called. She's still in town.
But something apparently been rattling the doorknob trying to...
And is that the only time you've ever had that, or?
Pretty much.
As far as we know, there was something... Thursday night, something spoke to us, or made a noise. I took Balder out to use the bathroom, and it was windy, and it was dark, and it wasn't quite stormy. Was it raining, Gab?
I don't
Or it
recall.
felt
I
like
don't
it was
think
about
so.
to rain, but it
It
seemed...
seems like it was right before the rain. We were trying to take Balder out before it rained.
Yeah, and the wind was kind of up, and heard some kind of noise over in the bushes. And then it either growled, and it sounded like a voice speaking, or it actually spoke and said, "Here." But the word "here" was very clear, but I guess something could have growled and made a noise that sounded like that. But it was very jarring to just step out and not think anybody or anything was anywhere around and hear a voice in your forest, not...
Well, our house is surrounded by woods.
Yeah, we're surrounded on 3 sides by trees.
Right. And that was towards the front of the house?
If you left my front door and took 2 steps out, and we've got the ramp that goes at an angle, the wheelchair ramp, and we've got the stairs that go up this way. If you took a step over towards the wheelchair ramp where you could kind of just lean your arm on the rail.
Mm-hmm.
It was right there.
Wow. Yeah, that's very close to your house.
Yes, and you know, right there at the tree where
You got that box up?
yep, it was right in there in the tall brush.
And it was dark out,
It was dark.
and you couldn't see anything,
Couldn't see anything.
and you didn't hear any movement or anything like that, did you?
Well, I mean, for that whole week or so right there, you'd hear like giant limbs breaking and stuff, being something walking around heavy over there.
But see, that's not very thick woods up there either.
No, but usually when something like that happens, I don't just, you know, my main objective is try to get Balder back in the house,
Right.
shut him in there, and I know that if I go in and get a flashlight, it's going to be gone by the time I get out.
Right.
It's like clockwork there.
You need to prepare.
But it's so random, it's hard to prepare.
No. You need to bring your bionic ear. You know, get like a holster for the bionic ear, and have everything ready every time. You failed me. So
I failed you. I failed.
It's kind of hard to do. Put on a Batman utility belt when we take Balder to the bathroom.
I don't understand why it is, but okay. If that's what you want to go with, fine.
Were you prepared when you was at the card night and heard that weird yapping?
That's not the same thing.
You
It's
failed the
exactly.
It's the very same thing.
You failed the show.
You actually came here for Bigfoot hunting.
Yeah, you came down here for Bigfoot hunting, and you weren't prepared.
Whatever.
Where's your utility belt?
Hey, you failed more times than I have. That's one time. One time.
Yeah. Well, I've had
so many opportunities.
Yeah, 2003 to 13 is 10 years.
That's 14 years.
14 years worth of failure.
Yeah.
I stand corrected, Nathan.
Okay. You've outdone me.
I have.
It's okay.
Don't you ever touch me again.
Well, I appreciate it, because, yeah, I mean, every time I come out here, it's interesting. We don't always get a lot of activity, but usually there's something that happens.
Tonight's the first night that we haven't really got anything except for early in the evening when you first stepped out.
Oh, but when we saw that weird shape thing, then we had something come up, and I hope we got it on recorder. It started making weird
Vocalization.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a couple of nights ago.
Right, that when we were out here and we saw the shadow.
Yes.
And then that's when we heard that, and it was coming towards us from the back end here. So I don't know what that was, but yeah.
It certainly has been interesting.
I do have a Patreon at NHD Photo. If you want to contribute that way.
Well, I have a mailbox. If you want to contribute to me that way, I can give you my address. And I do accept donations for any reason. It doesn't really matter.
Well, you can also send it to NHD at nhdphoto.com through PayPal if you'd like to donate that way as a one-time donation.
Well, I just like things like hot dogs and things of that nature. So if you want to send money for me to have a big fat
send you
cookout,
hot dogs?
no, not hot dogs. Money for them. I'm joking. I don't want your money.
But if you do want to help out, you can help out that way so that we can do.
It would be
further
appreciated.
research.
Anything like that, of course, it would be. And if you had suggestions of things that you would like us to go out and actually
Investigate. Or places.
we actually do investigate. It's not always just sitting around like a knot on a log like this.
Whoa!
Well, this is the easy investigating, because all we got to do is just sit around and something usually comes close.
Mm-hmm.
But then we've got
The hard stuff's when you go out looking for hair and footprints and things like that.
Well, we do have the site where we recorded all that real intense roaring.
Yeah, I want to go back there.
Wait until fall when the ticks sort of die out, because it's infested there right
Well,
now.
if you can come up when we're supposed to go in that area, maybe we can camp out in that area. Usually nobody comes up there.
Nobody else comes up there.
Well, it's kind of out of the way.
Well, the fact that there's a gate across the road makes all the difference.
There's not a gate up across the road there.
What do you think I'm talking about?
Where we get the roars?
Not that place where I recorded all that roaring where the jackass sounds are.
Oh, okay. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, we can definitely camp there.
There'd be something wrong if we couldn't.
I know.
But we have no lack of places to go and investigate. All it lacks is time.
Right, and getting the revenue together. I do have quite a bit of equipment. I'm a photographer and a videographer, but need to get some other stuff as well for night vision capabilities, because you're not really needing that shooting weddings and things. But yeah, so it's just coming up with certain things that I can use for doing investigations that would help. We do have audio equipment, things of that nature. Most of our evidence has been audio, but we would like to get some visual, evidence, because we did have that one encounter in 2009, and if we did have visual recordings of that, I think that would be definite evidence of their existence.
Well, I don't need visuals of it because I lived through it. We
I
had
know.
the visuals, and we had the audio, we had the experience, and it's easy for somebody to discount something if they've not had the experience.
Oh, I know. But that night definitely, took all doubt away and all skepticism of their existence, which through the years and the numerous things I've been through, that it waned. But, having that where it was right there in front of me, there's no doubt that it couldn't have been anything else. Because you always try to rationalize things.
Well, do you have anything else to say to the good people on Facebook or YouTube or whatever social media?
Well, don't put it on YouTube.
Well,
On
whatever you're
Chasing-
going to put it.
On Chasing Night Shadows.
Oh,
This is
just-
Chasing Night Shadows. That's what we
Whatever
are.
it is.
Hey. Amateurs.
Seacrest out.
Stay groovy, baby.